left to right. Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
What is up, everybody? It is Deibs, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. The Philadelphia 76ers lost to the Toronto Raptors 107-95. Joining me today, I have Austin. Follow his Feed to Embiid podcast. What's up? What's up, Austin?
Not much, Dives. Same old, man. Same thing every week. Just living the dream. A boy in his quarter zip, and that's all.
I'm a little under the weather today. You can tell my voice, a little shot. We're there's no rest for the weary here. Not against the Toronto Raptors, dude. I got to start off. Is there anything more frustrating than watching Kyle Lowry draw bullshit charges versus the 76ers?
Well, it's something we've gotten used to at this stage in his career, and he is what he is. You know what he's going to be. Hard to let something bother you if you know it's coming. But I thought tonight he was sort of the least of their problems.
For real. So the 76ers fell to 29-17. They are now 9-15 on the road. The 4-game win streak, poof, it's gone. Dude, man, what happened, man? The first half, you went from great defensive rotations, looking solid in transition. You're getting great looks. And then in the third quarter, you had like legit fourth quarter defense. The offense wasn't there. And the fourth quarter, the offense shot the bed. What's the takeaway from the game, man?
So for me, the takeaway was that they played a near perfect game, to be honest. I thought they all made the extra pass. They were all getting open looks. They were falling. And on the other side of the ball, too, the energy was carrying over. The Sixers were making the proper rotations in the half-court setting, and as a result, Toronto was having trouble getting off good looks. And then even in transition, the Sixers defense was quite good, I thought. The Raptors weren't able to get good looks in transition. They had to slow down their pace, and it saved the Sixers from a lot of buckets in transition that they would have given up. For me, the takeaway was that Brett Brown lost the game tonight. It's a rare game for me that Brett Brown loses the game. It's rare that I can say I point exactly to him and only him. But I do think that that tonight Brett Brown made a lot of poor choices. Most notably, even though he kept the starters in, he kept the bench in for far too long. Yep. For me, it was not so much in the first half as it was. Let me reverse that. Not so much second half as first half. About second half made sense because they were playing pretty well and the unit was working together. They got it to a 3-point game midway through the fourth when he brought in the starters again. But in the first half, when the Raptors cut the 14-point lead to 0, that was entirely bench, and that was too much bench. And I don't think Tobias Harris is the best fit with the bench either. I think you need to have a better facilitator, a better player like a Ben Simmons to come off with that bench. So maybe you sub Ben out first, you bring in a better playmaker with the starters, and then you let Ben come back in with the bench players. So I thought that was mismanaged by Brett. I thought that he late in the first and in the second half, both times he got 2-3 happy, and instead of saying, "Hey, let's work the ball around, let's keep pushing and getting extra passes," they were quick trigger threes. And when the Raptors were running with it, that was when they made the runs and took the lead. So that was where I stood with Brett Brown. Not a good game from him at all.
I fully agree, man. This was not a good look for Brett Brown. I disagree, man. I look at that end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter. Yes, the bench lineup kind of brought them back within 3. But, dude, that 10-0 run by the Raptors to end the third, you had
that was bad.
You had Furkan Korkmaz as the number 1 offensive weapon of Raul Neto, Shake Milton, Norvell Pell, and Mike Scott. And then you bring in Tobias Harris. Dude, that was just a train wreck. There were so many late substitutions in about a 20-minute stretch that absolutely killed the Sixers. That was my first take. My second take, what was your thought on Ben? Because I thought he had a really good game. That first half, I thought he was not offensive dominant, but that third quarter, just his defense was incredible. And then that fourth quarter, it's the same fucking storyline of the season, man.
Oh, we have kids listening to this podcast.
There's no kids in this podcast.
For me, the interesting thing with Ben Simmons was as soon as Josh went down and Ben had to be more of a shot creator for not just others, but for himself as well, he sort of regressed from his recent play. Yep. And that was sort of an alarm for me. Another thing that about Ben, I thought that he was overall pretty good. I would have liked to see him be more aggressive in attacking the basket, but I think with a team that has a defensive front of Siakam, Ibaka, and Gasol, it can be very, very, very difficult to sort of, I guess, always get right to the basket and get the look you want. But he could have been more assertive, more aggressive on the offensive end, and with his scoring, he had too many turnovers tonight. I believe he had 6. And I thought that he regressed in a lot of ways, but he had a 17-point near triple-double, and his free throw shooting was tremendous tonight. I was a good sign. I was very happy with that. And so, overall, I'm not going to complain too much about Ben, but he did regress a little bit, and I got to wonder maybe if he doesn't regress like that, maybe they win the game. But I don't think that Ben Simmons won or lost them this game.
I agree. Norman Powell, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, man, they just was too much for the Sixers. It seemed like after the second quarter, everything hit the front of the rim. Did the Sixers get tired? Like, what happened?
Well, you take a couple of factors. One could be travel. Maybe they're fatigued a little bit. They have they played in Brooklyn, then they come home for a day and they go right back to Toronto. So you could have that. You don't know what they were doing last night. But sometimes the shots aren't falling. They were scorching hot in that first quarter.
Right.
It was one of the best first quarters they've had all season long. It was just for some reason the shots weren't falling. But I kind of felt that it was the same way on the other end too for the Raptors. Shots weren't falling for Toronto either.
And then points in the paint. You look at the box score, man. 52-18 advantage to the Raptors. Jesus, man, that ain't good enough. A pro of the game, I thought Matisse Thybulle played really well. Matisse finished with 13 points, 2 boards. He did have 5 personal fouls, but just another game where he was all over the court defensively. What was your take on Matisse?
So Matisse, I thought, had a really, really good game in terms of his, I guess, his poise. He wasn't afraid. Earlier in the season, with those breakaway dunks in transition, he would have turned it over or pulled it right back out and said, "I'm not dunking that. I'm terrified." Today, he was happy to go up against the likes of Ibaka and throw down. He was confident in his shooting. A little short at times. Today was the first time I've ever seen Matisse really emotional about anything. So that was a sort of a pleasant, humane show, I guess, on his part. I thought overall he's certainly asserted himself as somebody who deserves to start with Horford or with Embiid in the lineup. I think when Embiid comes back, Horford should be coming off the bench.
There was a point in the third quarter where Matisse had like 3 steals and a 3-pointer, like back to back to back. It was fantastic. And then we had Shake Milton. He had 9 points. Is he here to stay, or is it just a flash in the pan?
Well, I theorized that maybe it was hey, this is a guy that you could throw in a trade and as somebody you could potentially develop. I thought he had a really, really nice game. He when he first came back from injury, he didn't look that confident. A lot of fouls, a lot of sort of, I guess, weak turnovers. Tonight he made 3 big shots for the Sixers, and he played, I thought, pretty well overall. I don't think he's going to have a ton of trade value per se, but I would seeing how his role develops down the stretch of this season, because if it does, and this team needs shooters desperately, it would be interesting to see if maybe he can give you something off the bench.
And then Al Horford had 7 points, 10 boards, 7 assists. Another one of those games where I thought he started playing really well in this game. Through 3 quarters, then he started missing shots. What was your take on Al Horford, man?
Yeah, I was not happy with Al Horford at all tonight. I thought that he was aggressive early on, finding his shots, and then for whatever reason, he sort of got away from that, and he was more passive, wasn't really looking towards the basket to score. And there are some nights, and this doesn't seem like it's part of his DNA per se, of like I'm going to take this game over, but it's, as somebody who's a 5-time All-Star and is one of the most respected players in this league, and is a $109 million contract being paid out to him, you do have to step up sometimes. 7 points in a game, with those 7 coming in the first 4 minutes of the first quarter, that's unacceptable. I need more. I need more aggressiveness. Get to a hook shot if you can. Dunks are perfectly acceptable too. I wouldn't mind a free throw here and there either. But just step out and just be stuck to threes when you have no one in the paint to sort of take away your spacing. I mean, I get it. Ben Simmons is definitely eats at spacing in the paint, but I mean, he's always looking to distribute the ball. They were making extra passes all night. There's no way that you couldn't have ducked in a couple times and gotten easy dunks out of it.
You're not wrong. I'm a believer. I'm a believer in Al Horford. I think he's going to earn that contract in the playoffs. So I'm just one of those that it's going to happen eventually. But you're absolutely right. Any last comments before we wrap it up?
So I do believe that this Sixers team is extremely, extremely, extremely weird in that they look like absolute garbage in the regular season sometimes, and then they'll look great other nights. I think this team, when you think about the fact that they're going to be matched up against one opponent for a 7-game series where all they're doing is watching film and practicing against that same opponent, and they have time to adjust in between games, they are going to be just unbelievably difficult to beat 4 times out of 7 when you have to play the same. I mean, it's one thing to beat a team a couple times when you play them not for twice over the course of 6 months or 3 months, 4 months. Another thing when you're playing them 3 times a week, and they know your tendencies. They know they've made mistakes in the past. They learn from those mistakes. The Sixers team is built for the playoffs, and I do believe in that theory. Now, will jump shots be a problem? They could be. They also might not be. We have no idea what they have coming in the next 2 weeks.
It really comes down to Ben finding a role. Him finding a role as a roller to the basket is a major storyline to this season. Can Brett Brown find Al Horford a role in this offense? That's a major question mark. And of course, I could care less if Joel Embiid sits the rest of the season. If you get 35 minutes of Joel Embiid in a playoff game, we're going to win every game. That's the bottom line.
It does feel like it's been about a month since he played, right? I'm not the only one. I feel like it's been forever since we last saw Joel.
Right.
But I mean, the team has played fairly well without him. Their defense has been sound. Their offense has been surprisingly good. Now, obviously, that's a whole conversation about, well, they don't fit together, yada yada yada. So it makes sense. I'm not entertaining that conversation right now. The coach has to go first if we're going to have that conversation before we can even begin to think about trading one of them. But tonight was a Brett Brown loss by and large, and there's not many times where I'll look at him as the only culprit, but he made so many mistakes that were so blatantly clear. There's no reason for Raul Neto to play. He can't create his own shot. He needs about 6 feet of space to even consider shooting the ball. Trey Burke is a much better shot creator and playmaker than Neto is. The placement of timeouts was atrocious to break up Toronto's runs and momentum. So all in all, when you lose Josh Richardson for the game and you don't have Embiid, it really isn't a horrible loss. It's a game that you could have, by in some worlds maybe you should have won, but this is a very good team in their building, and I'm not too upset. Now, do I think this could lead to another losing streak? Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that they beat the Lakers in Philly on Saturday night, but this is a game that it looks, a loss is a loss, but there were a lot of things to be happy about here.
What grade would you give Brett Brown on the season so far? We're like halfway. I'm right around like a C. What about you?
Well, isn't that sort of like what the Brett Brown grade has always been, as a C? I mean, no one's out here calling him a top 5 coach. No one really is out here calling him a bottom 5 coach. At least no one whose opinion I really think too deeply about. If I'm being honest, I would give him probably a C, maybe a C plus. It's probably a little bit less than advertised, and I think their offense is a little bit more than advertised, probably. But I think when you look at the nitty gritty of things, Ben Simmons does not listen to his. They have failed to make Horford and Embiid fit together. A bunch of guys have regressed. Torres has regressed a little bit. Horford's regressed, and they still find ways to play down to teams, and their coach can't motivate them to do so. So, do I think Brett Brown has been anything better than a C plus? No, I don't. But I think that you have such unique and opposing talents on this team, in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, that when you see how they play separately as individual players, this is a really hard job, because you have to blend and make two such different players work in the same world. And it's just so hard to do amidst expectations and other holes in the roster. So I think even though it's his roster construction per se, I think it's a very difficult job that he has to do, because you have to find a way to mold a non-shooting facilitator who can play 4 positions. You can play, 3 positions, and then a guy who needs the pace slowed down so we can be methodical in the half court. So I think it's a very tough job. I give him a C.
I fully agree. Like, with all the rotating lineups he's had to deal with. However, I'm the biggest Brett Brown guy there is, and he's definitely lost more games than he's won this year. And lastly, I found a really interesting stat. And given how great Matisse Thybulle has been since returning from injury, what would you guess he is shooting from 3-point range since his return from injury?
Under 20%.
Yeah, dude, 5 for 31, which I think speaks immense volumes to how great his defense has been. What about you?
Wait, Zion? Wait, not Zion. Matisse, you're saying?
Yeah.
What does his 3-point shooting have to do with his defense?
What I'm saying is he's been a huge factor to the Sixers' 4-game win streak.
Right.
Returning from injury, the steals, the deflections, the blocks, and you would guess like maybe 30-35%. You would never guess 5 for 31 from the perimeter. That's amazing. That's an amazing stat. That the fact that he's so impactful on the court and he's shooting so poor.
Right. So I think what Matisse Thybulle does so well is that he blends into what this defense is trying to do in terms of deflections, create steals, get open court buckets. So I think that he sparks so much of that it almost, I guess, conflates what he does with how good he is. So I do believe that his defense is just sensational, and I think that it might look a little like less impressive in a different system, but I think in this system with what he's trying to do, or with what Sixers are trying to do, it makes him look so much better, because like the game against Brooklyn, falling out of bounds, getting throwing the ball up in the air and getting creating steals and deflections and all that stuff. I mean, that's what this team's all about. So it makes him look much better when he gets it done.
Any last comments before we wrap this up, man? Plug your Be Doing Beat, man.
Listen, there's been a lot of a lot of sorcery lately in the world of sports, and I just want to say this is my parting shot, like they have in Around the Horn. A check mark on Twitter does not classify what is credible and what is not. Verification on check mark on Twitter, the purpose is to say this person is who they say they are. It doesn't mean they are legitimate and you are not if you don't have one. So to those who work hard, like Jason and Brian do, to get the information they have, and then they get slandered for putting it out there. The receipts exist. We have the receipts. They do exist. It is not about a check mark. It's about history and proof. And the proof shows that Brian and Jason have been right in the past. Me a little less, but there have been I've had my moments.
Right on, man. I've been with you behind the scenes. I know you've had your moments. So make sure you follow Austin on Twitter at KrellTPL. I'm going to go get some hot tea.
Please do.
Yes. Make sure you check all of our Sixers content at thepeanutlines.com. For Austin, for myself, stay awesome, guys.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me get a hell yeah!